What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the 10th and final episode of the M&A Matters mini-series. This is your host, Can Tiryakioğlu. Apologies for the delay to this final episode. As you know, I wanted to air this episode on Tuesday, and today is Friday. I had to rest a few days because I was feeling a little under the weather. As you can perhaps tell from my voice, I am mostly recovered though, so I could continue with the filming of this episode. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the macroeconomic drivers of M&A, what actually drives M&A activity or kills it, how that has impacted me and has driven me into preparing this M&A Matters series, and also continuing in that vein, what the future holds for me. So you may have noticed in headlines that 2023 has been the worst year of M&A activity in the last 10 years. So since 2013, it's been the year where M&A activity has been the lowest. So what is the reason for that? Of course, you are probably all following what's happening in various economies in the world. After the pandemic ended and the world started to normalize, consumers started buying products and services at an increased rate as the world returned to normal. As the demand for goods and services increased, this resulted in a wave of higher than normal inflation in developed world economies. So, normally in the developed world, the target inflation rate is around 2%. The reason why 2% is viewed as a healthy rate of inflation is because if prices of goods and services do not rise at all, so 0% inflation, that will lead to a stagnant economy. You need the prices to rise a little bit so that people want to buy goods and services now or within a few months time frame rather than delaying it too long. Obviously, there's an optimum of it. If you have too high an inflation, then since prices are rising all the time, it negatively impacts other aspects of the economy and it reduces people's purchasing power as wages do not follow suit. So let's say you have 20% inflation annual, 40%, 60%, 100% inflation, as is the case in some places like Turkey right now, then that is not beneficial. So a healthy rate of inflation of about 2% is encouraged by all the central banks around the world. After COVID, inflation rates in the developed economies of the world rose up to 4%, 8%, 10%, 14%. This rate of inflation has been deemed too much for developed economies, which are used to having inflation rates of 2% or so. So, in order to combat inflation, central banks increased interest rates. So, how does interest rate increases combat inflation? Well, if you increase interest rates, then the cost of borrowing money from the banks increases. So cost of financing increases. In addition, for day-to-day consumers, they may decide to, instead of buying goods and services now, they may decide to put their money, keep it in their bank and put it on interest so that they get some interest for that money. So as a result of those two key effects, one, consumers keeping their money in the bank, and two, financing becoming more expensive. This drives a reduction in the buying of goods and services. And as a result, this decreases the pressure on inflation as the market starts to cool. So the rate of inflation drops. The prices don't drop, of course, because if inflation already occurred and prices increase, they'll stay there, but the rate of price increase will have reduced. So how does this impact M&A? Well, if you have very high interest rates, then deal financing becomes very difficult. So if someone or company is looking to buy another company, they don't take out, let's say, $500 million of cash from their own company. They usually look to finance that deal through financing options offered by banks and financial institutions. If the interest rates are high, then it is expensive to finance a deal, which means companies wanting to make deals, they wait. And if they wait, then the deal volume decreases. So this has impacted both private equity and also corporate companies, which is why deal volume has been very low in 2023 compared to the previous 3 years. In Q3 of last year, the company I was working at was also looking to do a number of deals, but they closed fewer deals than expected. And as a result, in July of last year, given there were less integrations, they went to a downsizing in the company. Since July of last year, I've been looking for my next exciting opportunity, but since there hasn't been that many deals going on in the market, there hasn't been many M&A integration opportunities out there in the market either. However, fast forwarding to now, April 2024, we are seeing signs of improvement in the market. There are rumors that central banks in developed world economies are going to reduce the interest rates in the coming months. As you know, perception is as important as reality in the markets. So there's an expectation and perception in the market that interest rates will go down, which has resulted in an improvement in deal activity. There are a lot more companies looking to engage in deals now than 3 months ago or 4 months ago. So I'm hopeful about this improvement in the deal landscape. And also historically, Q2 of every year has been the year where the most deal-making activity has happened. Since we've now officially entered Q2, covering the months of April, May, and June, I'm hopeful that in this quarter there'll be a lot more M&A activity and a lot more opportunity for people like myself who are involved in M&A integrations. So I hope I managed to cover the basics of how macroeconomics impact M&A activity, at least from an inflation and interest rates perspective. I also hope you've enjoyed the M&A Matters mini-series. I wanted to do this series just so that I share some of the knowledge I gained throughout the years on M&A integrations and separations, but also it's a good way of interacting with people in the LinkedIn community and making new connections. Thank you to all of you who watch my videos, who've commented on my videos, who've contributed by engaging with the content I posted. I'll also be posting the whole series on YouTube and sharing the link shortly so that people can consume this information also in the future. Thank you for tuning in one final time for the end of the mini-series, and I'll leave you with one final note. Always remember, M&A matters.